Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday to you all. This is Linda with Linda's Soup Plants for you, and I want to just start out by thanking all my new subscribers especially. Thank you for taking the time to subscribe and to comment, and for those of you that have been following me for quite a while, I want you to know how much I appreciate that, and I hope that you'll continue to come back. Today I want to talk about my mini plant haul. I don't normally buy a lot of plants at one time when I go plant shopping. So I'm adding the word mini because for those of you who are expecting a big, huge, plant haul of 20-some plants, this is not the video for you. I purchased 3 plants over the weekend. Excuse me. And I want to talk a little bit about those plants. The first one I'm going to talk about is my black leaf Rex Begonia, or Begonia Rex, as it is known in the botanical world. I know that there are a lot of people that have problems with these, and I really wish that I could help those people because they are such a beautiful plant. And if you can find the right spot for it, they will really reward you with beautiful, beautiful, not only foliage, but also flowers. And I think one of the problems that we run into here with all of our plants is everybody's home is different. And I want to just interject something here that I think is good for everyone to know. I happen to have an iPhone, and on my iPhone I have a compass, and I used that about a year ago because when I was giving advice based on my light exposure versus, my light exposure, coming in through the east versus west versus south windows, it crossed my mind that I should double check and make sure that it is really an actual east window. Even though the sun comes up on that end, it may be more southeast or more northeast. So I did. I used my compass, and I found that, in fact, my east window is a little bit of a southeast. Not much, but just a hair. It's not an actual straight on east sun exposure. Now, does that matter in the plant world? Probably not. But if somebody is not sure of what kind of light that they are getting in through a particular window, that's a good way to check it. There are some plants that just do better in certain lights, and sometimes we have to accommodate, our shelving or our hooks or whatever, plant stands, to get that light to them. And some plants are adaptable. Sometimes the instructions will say it likes full southern exposure, but there are plants that will do okay if they're not in that kind of light. So it's just, I guess, the best thing to do is to research. Whenever I get a new plant, even if I've had that plant before, or I think that I know everything there is to know about it, I always like to go to my internet. Usually YouTube is my first choice, but sometimes I'll just Google that plant name to get the best rounded information that I can for that plant. On the Rex Begonia, I have, and I'm going to be doing a tour, and I know some of you have been waiting patiently for that, but and most of you know that I deal with some health issues that sometimes prevent me from getting the things done that I want to get done that day, and this has been one of them. I have purchased new shelving to accommodate ease of taking care of my plants. One of the things that I was doing was I was knocking over some of my plants, and I think I lost my most prized begonia. I'm not sure. I'm still nursing it back to health, but it fell and landed on its head, and it seemed to be okay. When I picked it up, it was doing fine, and then all of a sudden it started to decline very quickly. So nope, she's not doing good, and but I am hopeful that I can nurse her back to health. I hope. I am down to one leaf, and for those of you who have seen my previous videos on my begonias, you'll, I'm sure, share in my sadness over that. But at any rate, the Rex begonia that I have here is, and let me see if I can get a little closer without making you dizzy. I'm not very good with my zoom. There we go. Okay, so that is my new begonia, my new black leaf Rex begonia, and I just got that this weekend at Milligers, which is here in Wisconsin, southeastern Wisconsin. They did not have a lot to choose from, and I was a little sad about that because they tell me that they usually bring their indoor plants in the beginning of September when the outdoor season is over. And here we are in the 3rd week of September, actually close to the 4th week, and they had hardly any. They had a lot of Boston ferns, which obviously I don't want those, but this I did find. And this plant was only $5.98. So that is quite a find, I think. I was so excited to get that. And I love the color on that. The other thing with Rex begonias that you have to be careful is not to overwater. They do not like to be overwatered. And in fact, there is a video, Logi's greenhouse has a video on begonia care, and I would encourage those of you who are having trouble to go to that video. He talks a lot about the watering or lack of, and what he says has been right on the money for me, and when I take care of my begonias, I do it just like he says, and I've had no problems with mine. So you might want to check that out. And then moving on to the next find is my black pearl ornamental pepper. Isn't she stunning? I saw her on the way out. This too came from Milligers, and I'm hoping that you can see the actual peppers on here. It's hard to tell when I look in the viewfinder on the camera, but I think you can see it okay. This is a black pearl ornamental pepper, and it requires very bright light. You have to be careful when you purchase any kind of ornamental food plant or pepper plant, because when it has the word ornamental in it, very often it also has fungicides in it, because the greenhouses are not growing those for food purposes. So be very careful that you know where that plant is from if you intend to eat the peppers off of it, because they are edible, and also keep them away from your pets and your children. They're very, very spicy, and if your little kids get that on their hands and rub their eyes, they're going to have burning in their eyes. It's a dangerous plant to have around children. Now, I have a little 3-year-old great-grandson, so I am not going to take a chance of leaving this on my table when he is here. If he comes to spend the night, that plant will be going up far out of his reach. I'm also considering putting it in a hanging basket because you can do that with these plants as well. As far as care, they just like to be kept evenly moist. And by evenly moist, I want to define that again for you all. That doesn't mean to keep the soil wet, and it doesn't mean to keep all the soil moist. Generally, when they say, or we say evenly moist, usually you want to let the top inch or two of the soil dry out before you water. I can't really think of any plant that loves to have wetness on their roots 24/7. Now, I have a friend who she's the queen of houseplants as far as I'm concerned. And she loves to water her plants. And she waters them every day. And her plants are beautiful. But the difference between her plants and mine is she has a different substrate. So for her, she probably would have to water this plant every day if she had it planted in her normal potting mix, which it's different for different plants that she has, but she has a very open, airy soil. She uses a lot of orchid bark, or wood bark. She uses charcoal. It's just a very, very loose, does not hold water. So in that case, yep, you probably do have to water it every day because it'll dry out after 24 hours. Excuse me. Okay, so enough about the watering. What else do I know about? Oh, feeding. You want to use a low nitrogen food on this plant because otherwise it will encourage leaf growth and you won't get those beautiful black or blue pearl peppers on there. So, and that you can look on the bottle. It will give you, there's always 3 numbers on there, and it'll give you the amounts of nitrogen and phosphorus and so on. So you can tell by that if it's a low nitrogen, okay? And I'm sure that there are other videos out there that go into a lot more detail regarding fertilizer. I am not an expert on that, so I'm not going to even attempt to do that. Just know that you need a low nitrogen fertilizer for this plant. Okay, and then thirdly, and I'm going to move my camera so that you can get a better view. So, okay, this is my third purchase for that day, and I was so excited to find this. I got it from Stein's Garden and Gifts, and I was just about to leave the store, and I probably should tell you, my whole purpose for going plant shopping that day was to find a plant to fill this corner. The plant that I had here, I have in a different spot, and I wanted something bigger and fuller and viney, and I was just about to leave when I spotted this. I actually had walked by it the first time because it looked like an ivy to me, and I do not buy ivies anymore. They don't do well in my home. I think part of it is the humidity levels, but they've just, over the years, I have tried so many times because I do love the look of the ivy, but they've just been too much work and too many pest problems for me. So I had pretty much given up on them. So when I walked by this, I kind of looked and turned away, and I thought, oh, that's an ivy. No, don't want that. Well, on the way out, I looked a little closer, and I realized it was a Cissus, which is really not an ivy at all. It's called the grape ivy because the leaves are like grape leaves. Let's see if I can get a close-up of that without making you dizzy. So when I realized it was a Cissus, and that is spelled C-I-S-S-U-S, rhombifolia, I got very excited and I grabbed the plant. Well, actually, I asked my husband to pull it down for me because I couldn't reach it. He said, you know that's $24.99, because he knows I don't like to spend a lot of money on plants. I would rather buy them small and grow them up myself. There are exceptions to that, and this was one of them. My answer to him was, yeah, and the reason I say that is because, you know, $24.99 is really not a lot of money for this plant. I think it's a very good deal. Like I said, I don't even know if I've ever seen these in my stores or greenhouses. I did have at one time, I had another ivy. I believe it was called a Bulgarian ivy. I'm not positive, don't quote me on that. But years ago, and it was very much like this one, but the leaves were like 3 times the size. They were huge, and they were darker, and they were purple on the back sides, and it grew and grew and grew like a weed. And I had that draped all the way around my dining room ceiling. And then one winter, I still don't really know what happened to it. I don't know why it died on me, and that made me so sad. So I was a little reluctant to try that again, but we're going to try this one and see how it goes, because as you can see, it has these beautiful little tendrils on there, I'm sorry, that hang on to things, and I think hopefully you can see that. And I think this is going to fit really nicely in my dining room. I mean, it fits nicely where it is right now, but I'm excited to see it grow up and around the curtains and around the room again. So we'll see what happens. But I just wanted to share that with you all. Again, this is a Cissus rhombifolia, for those of you that want to look that up and learn more about it. This is one of those exceptions that I referred to earlier about the watering. This plant really needs to stay moist, and you still have to let it dry out a little bit in the top inch or two. You don't want to keep it soaking wet, but it does not like to dry out. They will not come back as easily as other plants, and in some cases they won't at all if you let them dry out too far. So this is a plant that really cannot dry out. So that's going to be another challenge for me, because years ago I used to be an overwaterer, and I have now overcorrected myself to the point of, well, I underwater to a fault, let's put it that way. But I have found over the years that almost all plants will come back from underwatering. Not always, there are exceptions to everything, but most plants can be underwatered and that can be corrected. Whereas if you overwater, that's usually the end of it. It's very difficult to bring a plant back from overwatering, and depending on how much you overwatered, probably can't bring it back at all. Once those roots are rotted, there's nothing you can do to save them. I have had some plants that I overwatered, but I caught it, or I shouldn't say I overwatered, but I brought home from the store, and it had been overwatered. And I immediately took it out of the soil. I cut off the many roots that were already black and rotted and soggy, and I let it lay out on paper towels for a few hours to give it a chance to dry out. And when I repotted it in new soil, I made sure that that soil was very light and airy and dry, and I did not water it right away. And that is one way to bring the plants back. But like I said, that does not always work. If there are no viable roots left on the plant, then chances are it's not going to come back. So watering is still, I guess, a big issue for a lot of us, and we just have to be careful what we're doing and keeping an eye on our plants on a daily basis. I know that really, really helps, and I'm not always able to do that, and when I'm not, I usually have consequences for that. So I would suggest that if you have the time, at least take a look. You know, when you have your morning coffee or tea or cocoa or Mountain Dew or whatever your pleasure is, before you do anything else that day, just take a walk, you know, around and take a look at your plants. Once you get to know what they're supposed to look like, you'll recognize right away when there's something wrong. So that's going to be it for today. I'm sorry for the hoarseness here in my voice. I want to thank you all for coming back, and I want to invite you to join me in my next video. I am going to be doing a tour of my dining room that I have really revamped it since the last time you saw it. And I'm anxious to show all my plant friends, and I'm anxious to hear your comments and see what you think. And that should be coming very soon. If not today, probably tomorrow. But very, very soon. Okay, so we'll see you then. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a pleasant Monday. And we'll see you next time. Thank you all again for coming. Bye now.